Waiver wire week 14 fantasy football. It's the push to the playoffs. These are the weeks that matter. If you're trying to just get above 500, try to get into the playoffs, here are the guys you should be picking up. Let's start at the running back position. Isaac Guerendo. He is only rostered in 5% of leagues. Well, that's because the Niners had Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason. Unfortunately for them, both expected to go on IR. This season for San Francisco has been so disappointing, but they have been running the ball really well despite those injuries. And Guerendo has been good. He's averaging nearly 6 yards per carry. Kyle Shanahan loves to run the ball. They had 27 rush attempts this past week. I think Guerendo is going to see a ton of work. So this would be my number one target out of all of the waiver wire options for week 14. When we look at the receiver position, Adam Thielen. I love Thielen, and he's been dealing with injury. The Panthers just haven't looked good, but he is back. He's only rostered in 13% of leagues. He had nearly 24 points last week. This was his second game back from injury, and he led the team in targets with 10. He had a touchdown. He had 99 yards. The Eagles' pass defense is good, and that's who they'll be facing this week. But the Panthers are the kind of team that are just going to get those garbage yards, the garbage points, and Thielen's going to be that top guy for Bryce Young. In terms of tight end, I'm looking at Juwan Johnson. You might not be too familiar with Juwan Johnson. He's only rostered in 1% of leagues. And that's because when we think tight end for the Saints, you think Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, he's likely going to be out for the season. And Juwan Johnson was actually originally a receiver, and they moved him into a tight end role. But the good thing is, in terms of fantasy, he still plays like a receiver. Yards after the catch is one of the things he is great at. And he had 7 targets last week. And now that Taysom Hill won't be playing, I think that's going to increase even more. He did have a touchdown 2 weeks ago. So Juwan Johnson, if you're needing a tight end this week, that's who I'd be eyeing. In terms of quarterbacks, we've got a lot of good quarterbacks on a bye for week 14. So go and get Caleb Williams. I think a lot of people dropped him. He's still rostered in 45% of leagues, but it's getting a bit easier for him. Thomas Brown now and as the OC, and it's just a more simplified offense, which is working in Caleb's favor. 3 passing touchdowns last week, 256 yards, and the last 2 weeks has been great for fantasy. The Niners' pass defense is pretty good, but it's just not as good as you normally would think of San Francisco. Don't be afraid to play Caleb Williams this week. The Niners are up against it. And in terms of defense, I like the Cardinals. Only rostered in 19% of leagues. They are averaging double-digit points the last 4 weeks. And they've got a pretty, I don't want to say easy, but relatively easy next 3 weeks with the Seahawks, Patriots, and Panthers. They just sacked Sam Darnold 5 times. So Cardinals rostered in 19% of leagues. That is the defense pickup for me. Week 14 is here. Happy fantasy football. Good luck.